It was very interesting to watch the Microsoft-FTC court case take place over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, we were looking to see if the court would allow Microsoft to continue with their purchase of Activision, Blizzard Entertainment, and King. Microsoft would own them under their Xbox Game Studios division, and well, this deal is a big deal, pun intended. Xbox would be owning some big-time game franchises like Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and Candy Crush. This isn't Xbox's first acquisition either. Back in 2021, they bought ZeniMax Media and Bethesda Games. Many government commerce bodies around the world reviewed the deal for antitrust concerns. Most have approved. There are still, I believe, 2 reviewing the purchase, and also, of course, the FTC themselves deciding to request an injunction that would have temporarily blocked the $69 billion deal. The District Court for the Northern District of California ended up denying the FTC's motion for a preliminary injunction, and then in the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority has also rejected the deal. That organization stated that they are willing to work with Microsoft if they look to rework some of the terms and conditions within that purchase. That still remains to be seen, but we ended up learning a lot during this trial, more than just this whole proceeding about, this purchase in and of itself. In today's video, I want to go over some of the things we learned throughout this trial, and I will, of course, analyze this and analyze that. So during the trial, we learned a lot more about Xbox's defeat in the console wars. Now, Phil Spencer initially came out and admitted that Xbox lost the console war, way before the trial began when he did his interview with Kinda Funny Games. Microsoft made those claims again during the trial, and they backed that up with some more shocking details. Microsoft claimed that its original Xbox was defeated by Sony and Nintendo all the way back when it entered the market the first time in 2001. The company claims that they have been losing the console wars ever since. Microsoft then cited numbers from 2021 in which Xbox supposedly held a 16% share of the console video game market. Now, this honestly shocked me. I had no idea that the Xbox consoles have always been in third place, behind both PlayStation and Nintendo. I figured maybe the one time Xbox was on top, or at least in second place, was during the 360 era. Unfortunately, a lot of other numbers have been redacted in these documents, so it's tough to fully commentate on this and see where everybody else stands in comparison. The PlayStation and Nintendo numbers were apparently redacted, so you may have to go on Google and try your best to do some research there. And I know for a fact that you can find the all-time console sales rankings from IGN and other websites. And those rankings actually do show proof that the Xbox is nowhere close to Nintendo and PlayStation in regards to the console wars. Both PlayStation and Nintendo dominate the top 5. Here's the top 5 highest selling consoles of all time. At number 1, the PS2. At number 2, the Nintendo DS. Number 3, the Nintendo Switch. And at 4, Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And then at 5, the PS5. Meanwhile, the Xbox Series X and S is ranked 23. The first Xbox is ranked at 21. The Xbox One clocks in at 14. And the Xbox 360 barely made the top 10, slotting in at 9. So yeah, that doesn't really bode well for Xbox at all. And I do roll my eyes at this next bit of info that we learned. IGN reviewed the court documents and found that Microsoft expects the next generation of consoles to start in 2028. If this is true, then the current gen would last only 8 years. It feels like we are still in the beginning of this current generation of consoles thanks to the hardware shortages, broken games at launch, and numerous game delays thanks to the pandemic back in 2020. I know it's still like 5 years away, but honestly, after investing in both an Xbox Series S and the PS5, I would really like to enjoy these consoles as the newest consoles until at least 2030. We also have learned in court documents that it appears Microsoft has been aggressively looking to grow their power in the industry for quite some time. Microsoft considered purchasing Sega, Square Enix, Zynga, and even Bungie before they were purchased by Sony. Apparently, they had a list of 100 different companies that they considered at one point. There's also answers as to why Microsoft has become so power hungry over the past couple of years. The company wanted to make acquisitions so that they could fill in the gaps for mobile development. They also wanted to target franchises that had strong communities and deep engagements. It seems like they wanted a variety of franchises, casual ones, social, and cross-generational. We also learned some new things about Sony. Sony submitted a document that released a lot of info. I was surprised that it really wasn't redacted. The Last of Us Part 2's development, for example, cost the company $220 million. The cost for Horizon Forbidden West at $212 million to make. So, after learning that PlayStation was able to invest $432 million in just 2 games, I don't ever want to hear them cry about Xbox making moves that are unfair or any excuse about them not having enough money to hang with the rest of them because, well, they sure had a lot of money for these, of course, successful franchises. The company also claimed in the document that the costs were justified for AAA games because it helps create deep and ongoing engagement with players. And it's also funny because the company also claimed in the document that the costs were justified for AAA games because it helps create deep and ongoing engagements with players. Don't they share the same goals as Xbox? That poorly redacted document Sony released also gave us an idea on just how much Call of Duty is truly worth. Sony revealed that COD generated over $800 million for the PlayStation in the US alone in 2021. When Phil Spencer testified under oath, he talked about how Xbox would continue to keep COD on PlayStation and claimed that the Activision CEO Bobby Kotick threatened to pull COD from Xbox unless Microsoft granted Activision a higher revenue share. And speaking of the COD connection between Xbox and PlayStation, they just reached an agreement to keep the franchise on PlayStation for at least the next 10 years. Microsoft supposedly already offered this deal and Sony refused to sign. That probably was because they wanted to see what would happen with this court case. It's just funny to me to see all these little petty things that Sony has done in order to keep this deal from happening. Like Jim Ryan has stated that he was never worried about COD staying on PlayStation, and he's come out in interviews earlier in the year claiming that publishers told them that they don't like Game Pass because they lose money. Jim also said that he went public with all these business details and conversations because Phil Spencer went public with them. Well, Phil had to, didn't he? He has to defend his company's reasoning for making this big purchase. Jim also said that he doesn't think Starfield's exclusivity is anti-competitive and that PlayStation will be fine if the deal goes through. So again, why was PlayStation an opponent to Microsoft's deal to begin with then? Look, I don't want to be a foot soldier fighting on the hill for multi-billion-dollar corporations, but I do think Microsoft plans and actions here are reasonable. I understand why they are doing what they are doing. This isn't a clear-cut rivalry where it's Microsoft bad and Sony good type of thing. How many amazing games and franchises does Sony keep to themselves? Uncharted, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon, and Spider-Man, for example. And I believe PlayStation also had exclusivity deals with some Bethesda games too, including Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. So, was this another motivation for Microsoft maybe to do what they did? Phil Spencer says so. And one of the arguments for the FTC is that they say it wasn't fair for the upcoming Indiana Jones game to be an Xbox exclusive because I believe it's being made by Bethesda. Like really? That's the game that the FTC wanted to use to hold up this deal. I understand the fear of giving Microsoft too much power. Many gamers already hate the fact that exclusives have existed for many years, and I get why publishers might be hesitant to put their games on Game Pass, but it's gotta be working, right? Like, the service has existed for about 6 years now, and it continues to grow. The library is growing every single year. And I've seen within the community that Xbox gamers have voiced their thoughts on Microsoft doing away with Xbox Live Gold eventually one day and just sticking with the Game Pass model. And now that is actually happening. Xbox Live Gold is being replaced with Game Pass Core. It will be a $10 per month membership or a $60 membership a year, so the price is basically the same if you were paying for a yearly membership. And to me, Xbox has way better deals for its consumers. I want the damn games to improve, I'll admit that, I've already talked about that a lot in other videos, but I would rather invest in the services that Xbox has right now over PlayStation. PlayStation has 3 different tiers of membership themselves. The basic one is $60 like Xbox, but the other ones are even more expensive. You want to have access to the entire catalog of PS4 and PS5 games? Cool. Get the second tier. It's $100 a month. Want to play games that are 15 to 20 years old? The good old PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 3 games, and even PSP games? Well, go ahead and get the third tier option and spend $120 a year. And I know you could break it down, pay by month or quarterly, but you look that up, it's still expensive. It's still more expensive than the membership options that Xbox has with these different levels of Game Pass and whatnot now that they're changing some things. And look, I've been critical of Xbox quite a bit over the years, but I am happy to see them wanting to change their luck around, and I do appreciate their consumer-first model. I'd rather Microsoft and Sony not control the entire industry, but I'm just being real, who else is going to stand up to them at this point? Nintendo could, and they are, but I think honestly Nintendo is very happy with where they're at right now. They're currently dominating and thriving in their own little world. I don't think Nintendo really cares that much about what's going on with PlayStation and Xbox because they're killing it with their own games, and they basically have a bunch of their own games that are exclusive to their brand. Well, tell me your thoughts down below in the comments, like the video and subscribe for more. Make sure you have those notifications on too. You can also find me on Twitter and TikTok, Twitter at analyzethis_YT and TikTok at analyzethis54_YT. I'm also on Spotify now, just search Analyze This Podcast. You'll find my logo and all my content there if you'd like to listen to the audio form. Thanks again for watching and take care.